V, can you feel it watching you right now because the eyes in the sky never blink and the finger hovering over the red button does not care if you are innocent or guilty because the rules of war have been burned to ashes and replaced by a terrifying V, new reality where the executioner is judge, jury, and God all at once. And you need to listen to me very carefully because what I am about to tell you is not a conspiracy theory. It is not a nightmare. It is the bloody reality dripping from the hands of V, a regime that has decided that due process is an inconvenience and that death is the only currency they are willing to pay, and it starts in the silence of the ocean, where you think you are safe, where you think the world is peaceful, but in Trinidad. D, two men named Chad Joseph and Rishi Samaru were just fishing, just living their lives, floating on the blue water, thinking about their families, thinking about dinner, thinking about tomorrow, but they would never see tomorrow because miles above them, a V, metal predator was locking onto their heartbeats, and without a warning, without a single word of negotiation, a U.S. military strike obliterated them into nothingness and turned their flesh and bones into debris scattered across the waves. And here is V, the part that should make your blood freeze in your veins. They were not criminals, they were not soldiers, they were fishermen, but the Trump White House branded them as terrorists. V, KPT had zero proof, zero evidence, and zero remorse celebrating their deaths. V, on social media like it was a game, like it was a sport, while their families screamed for answers that would never come because the government claimed the authority to kill anyone, anywhere, anytime by simply labeling them a threat. And if you think this is just happening in some distant ocean, you are wrong. You are dead wrong because the shadow war is moving fast and it is eating the world alive. Just look at Nigeria on Christmas Day, a day of peace, a day of prayer, but not for the victims of us. V, Africa command strike that rained fire from the heavens targeting alleged camps linked to extremists, but who was really killed, no one knows because the bodies were buried under the lies and the conflicting reports, with local sources saying dozens of V, civilians were wiped off the face of the earth and missile debris landing far from the target zone, tearing apart infrastructure and injuring bystanders who had nothing to do with anything, but the regime called it a success, a decisive blow of victory. V, for Christians, while the ashes of the dead were still smoldering and the truth was buried under a mountain of propaganda that says we kill first and we justify later if we bother to justify it at all, and the horror keeps escalating because they are. V, not just dropping bombs on boats and camps, they are invading sovereign nations with a brutality that would make dictators blush. Just look at Venezuela, where a US operation captured President Nicolas Maduro in a bloodbath that reportedly left over V, 100 people dead, including security forces and foreign advisors, and maybe even civilians caught in the crossfire. But we don't know the full toll because the details are scarce and the casualties are hidden behind the curtain of classified V, operations and national security secrets that allow the regime to wage war without Congress, without oversight, and without your permission. But if you think you are safe because you are an American citizen living on a soil, then you need to wake up. V, before it is too late because the war has come home, and the battlefield is your neighborhood, your street, your backyard. Just ask the family of Alex Prey in Minnesota, a man who was hunted down by us Border Patrol agents and labeled a domestic terrorist, a dangerous extremist who tried to attack law enforcement. That was the official story. That was the lie they fed to the media to paint him as a monster, but then the video footage came out and shattered their lies into a million pieces. V, because Alex Prey was not attacking, he was tackled, he was disarmed, and he was shot repeatedly in the back, executed like an animal in the dirt by the very people sworn to protect him. And when the truth came out, did they apologize? Did they admit? V, murder, no, the White House softened its rhetoric, but they never retracted the terrorist label because once they mark you for death, you are guilty, even if you are innocent, and he was not the only one. Renee Nicole Good, another civilian, another tragedy. V, another life snuffed out in Minneapolis and initially justified by federal authorities before being dismissed as a tragedy, as if her life was just a mistake, a clerical error in the ledger of death that this regime is writing every single day. And V, this is the pattern, this is the nightmare that civil liberties advocates are screaming about, but no one is listening because the noise of the bombs and the tweets is too loud. But you need to hear this: the executive branch is asserting sweeping V, authority to kill anyone abroad or at MT home without charge, without trial, without a jury of peers, just a name on a list and a missile or a bullet to the back. And they claim it is legal. They cite secret laws that you are not allowed to see. And V. Expansive interpretations of war that turn the entire planet into a battlefield where every single human being is a potential target, and the lawsuits are piling up, the families are crying out for justice, but the courts are struggling to catch up. V. With a presidential power that is moving faster than the speed of sound, smashing through the barriers of the Constitution and the Admiralty Law and the Alien Tort Statute, because when you can kill first and explain later, the law does not matter. V. Anymore, only power matters. And right now, the power is concentrated in the hands of a few who view lethal force not as a last resort, but as a tool of direction, a way to shape the world through violence and fear and silence. And the question you have. V. 2. Ask yourself as you sit there watching this video, is Amy next? Because if they can kill fishermen in Trinidad and claim they were terrorists, if they can bomb villagers in Nigeria and claim it was a victory, if they can shoot an American citizen in V. The back in Minnesota and call him a threat, then what is stopping them from labeling you a threat? What is stopping them from putting your name on the list? What is stopping the drone from hovering over your house tonight while you sleep? Because the V. Precedent has been set. The line has been crossed, and the era of due process is dead buried under the bodies of the innocent who dared to cross paths with a regime that recognizes no limits and no mercy, and as the legal battles rage on, as the lawyers V. Fight to force the government to answer the fundamental question of whether the president can decide who lives and who dies. The death toll keeps rising, and the shadow of tyranny grows longer across the land and the sea and the sky, and this is not V. Just about politics. This is about survival. This is about whether we are citizens with rights or subjects waiting for execution. This is about whether the rule of law still exists, or if we have descended into a barbaric state of nature where the V. Strong devour the weak, and the truth is whatever the man with the gun says, it is. So you need to share this video, you need to sound the alarm, you need to wake up everyone you know, because silence is complicity and ignorance is a death sentence in a V. World where the government can kill you and then brand you a terrorist to cover their tracks. And if we do not stand up now, if we do not demand accountability, if we do not shine a light into the darkness of these secret operations, then we are all V. Walking ghosts waiting for the moment when the sky opens up and the fire comes down, and there will be no one left to speak for us, no one left to file the lawsuits, no one left to mourn, because we will all be casualties in a war that never ends, a war. V. Against the people, a war against the truth, a war against you. So watch your back, watch the sky, and pray that your name is not on the list today, because tomorrow might not come for you. Just like it did not come for Chad Joseph Diu Sete, like it did not V. Come for Rishi Samaru Diu et te, like it did not come for Alex Prey, and just like it might not come for any of us if this madness is not stopped right here, right now, before the darkness swallows us all whole. V. And do not think for a second that you can hide from this, because the surveillance state that feeds this killing machine is already in your pocket. It is in your hand. It is staring adamantly your face right now through the black mirror of your smartphone. V. Because every click, every like, every location tag is feeding the beast that decides who is a friend and who is an enemy. And in this new world order, the algorithms are the prosecutors, and the prosecutors and the data points are the evidence. And if your digital footprint B. crosses the wrong path, or if you stand too close to the wrong person, or if you dare to speak out against the narrative, the system flags you not as a citizen exercising rights, but as a signal in the noise, a pattern to be neutralized. And this is the V. Terrifying genius of the modern assassination complex, because they do not even need to know your name to kill you. They call it signature strikes, a cold and clinical term for mass murder based on behavior, where if you look like a militant, if you act V. like a militant, if you are a male of military age in a strike zone, then you are a target and you are vaporized without anyone ever knowing who you actually were until the dust settles and the weeping mothers come to collect the pieces of their sons. V. Who were just farmers or drivers or teachers, but in the eyes of the Pentagon, they were just pixels on a screen that needed to be deleted, and this methodology of death is spreading like a virus from the battlefields of the Middle East to the streets. V. of Western democracies, because once you accept that the government can kill based on patterns of life, then no one is safe, not the protester in Portland, not the journalist in New York, not the whistleblower in Washington, because the definition of terrorism is expanding every single day, like a black hole swallowing dissent and turning criticism into treason, and we are watching the erosion of centuries of legal protections in real time as the habeas corpus is shredded and the Bill of Rights is V. used as toilet paper by power-hungry officials who believe they are chosen by God to wage a holy war against evil, while they themselves become the very monsters they claim to fight. And look at the silence of the Congress, look at the silence of the He. The Senate, they are not stopping this. They are funding it. They are signing the checks that pay for the missiles that blow up wedding parties and funeral processions because, yes, they bomb funerals too. They wait for the survivors to gather to mourn the dead. And then they strike again, a double tap to ensure maximum casualties and maximum terror, to send a message that there is no sanctuary, not even in grief, not even in death. And this is the moral abyss we have fallen into, where cruelty is the point. And mercy is a weakness, and the American flag, which once stood for liberty, is now seen by millions around the world as a symbol of death from above, a warning sign that the sky is about to fall, and if you think the rest of the world is going to stand. By and watch, you are delusional, because this aggression, this unchecked imperialism, is breeding a generation of hatred, a generation of people who have lost everything and have nothing left to lose, and they are watching and they are waiting and they are waiting, and the coming, it is inevitable. It is physics. For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, and we are sowing the wind, and we will reap the whirlwind, a hurricane of violence that will tear through our cities and our homes, because you cannot slaughter people in the dark and expect to live in the light forever. The blood will wash up on our shores. It is already here, seeping into the foundations of our society, rotting us from the inside out as we become numb to the atrocities, as we scroll past the headlines of massacres like they are weather reports. And this apathy is their greatest weapon, because if we do not care, if we do not scream, then they have won and the transformation is complete. We are no longer a republic. We are a global death. Ixomen ull te worshipping at the altar of preemptive strikes and secret evidence, and consider the absolute horror of the precedent being set for future presidents, for future tyrants who will inherit this machinery of doom, because the power we give to one man today will be wielded by another tomorrow. And imagine a leader with no conscience, with no restraint, with a vendetta against you or your group or your ideology, having the absolute power to designate you a threat and erase you from existence with a keystroke, and no judge will stop him, no lawyer will save you, because the Supreme Court will say it is a political question, and the military will say it was a lawful order, and the media will say you were a suspected terrorist, and your neighbors will lock their doors and turn off their lights and pray they are not next. And this is not science fiction. This is the legal reality being constructed brick by brick, body by body in the shadows, while you watch reality fasten and argue. And dasen data vistan is and a us and day and a u. About sports, the chains are being forged. The drones are being upgraded with artificial intelligence that can decide to kill faster than a human can blink, removing the human element entirely, so that eventually it won't even be a man with a finger on the button. It will be a black box, a code, a ghost in the machine, making the decision to end your life based on a calculation of risk that you cannot see and cannot appeal and cannot understand. And when the machines start killing, mistakes will happen. Glitches will happen, and entire neighborhoods could be wiped out in a microsecond of silicon madness, and they will call it collateral damage. They will call it a system error, but you will be just as dead, and your children will be just as gone, and the apology press release will be written by a chatbot, and no one will go to jail because the machine cannot be jailed, and the programmers are protected by sovereign immunity, and the generals are playing golf, and the president is holding a rally. Boasting about how tough he is, while the world burns and the ashes fall like snow on the ruins of democracy. And you have to ask yourself, what is the end game here? Is it total control? Is it a panopticon where every breath is monitored? Is it a planet where fear is the only law and obedience is the only virtue? Because that is where we are heading. Atem fee breakneck speed, and the brakes have been cut, and the steering wheel is locked, and the driver is laughing maniacally as we careen toward the cliff. The edge, and the worst part, the absolute worst part, is that we are paying for it. We are working, we are paying taxes, and those tax dollars are buying the fuel for the drones and the bullets for the snipers and the server space for the surveillance data. So we are not just victims, we are financiers of our own destruction. We are digging our own graves with silver spoons and handing the shovels to the executioners, thanking them for keeping us safe while they put the noose around our necks and tighten. It's slowly, so we do not notice until our feet leave the ground and the air is cut off, and by then it is too late to scream, too late to fight, too late to vote, because the voting booths will not save you when the enemy is the state itself, and the state itself, and the state has declared war on anyone who challenges its supremacy. And remember the case of the American citizens killed in Yemen. Remember Anwar al-Awlaki killed by a drone, and then his 16-year-old son Abdul Rahman killed by a drone while eating dinner too. Weeks later and then years later, his 8-year-old daughter Nawar killed in a raid shot in the neck and bleeding out for 2 hours while us soldiers watched an 8-year-old American girl killed by her own government, and the press secretary said, she should have had a better father, blaming a child for her own murder. This is the level of psychopathy we are dealing this is the cold-hearted evil that occupies the halls of power, where the death of children is justified as a necessary cost. Of doing business. And if they can kill an 8-year-old girl and blame her father, then they can kill you and blame your brother or your friend or your past and make it look like justice, and the history books will be written by the victors and the victors. Victors will be the ones with the drones and the kill lists, and the victims will be forgotten footnotes in a classified report buried in a basement at Langley, redacted with black ink until the pages are just darkness reflecting the soul of a nation. That lost its way and sold its soul for the illusion of security and found only terror in return. So look at your family tonight, look at them hard, and ask yourself, what would you do if they were taken from you by a missile from the blue sky? Would you do if the police kicked down your door and shot them and claimed they were terrorists? Would you fight? Would you crumble? Would you believe the lies? Because it is happening to families just like yours all over the world, and the circle is closing in. The targeting reticle is moving across the map, and it is getting closer to your zip code, closer to your street, closer to your living room, and the only thing standing between you and the abyss is the truth, but the truth is being hunted. Down the truth tellers are in prison or in exile or in graves, and the liars are in the Oval Office and the Pentagon and the newsroom, spinning a web of deceit so thick you cannot see the sun, and unless we rip, tear, and shred through this veil of lies. Unless we demand the files be opened and the secret laws be burned and the kill lists be exposed, we are doomed to walk into the slaughterhouse like cattle, docile and distracted until the hammer falls and the lights go out forever, and this is your final warning. This is the red alert screaming in your ear that the war is not over, it has just begun, and you are the enemy in the eyes of the state. So wake up, wake up, wake up before the nightmare becomes your permanent reality and the only sound you hear is the buzzing of the drone that has finally found you.